was just talking with a few truckers recently and found out about a May 1st trip for truckers wanting to go to DC. They have a lot of legitimate concerns that they want to bring up to this good administration that's in there now. So one of them is broker transparency, and I want to touch on that because I've been a company driver. I started trucking in '79. Started out first running all 48 states, a little bit of Canada, and there's a lot of ways that carriers who employ drivers can take advantage of them, and I won't touch on that right now because that's not the big issue, but I'll touch on one of them: paying the drivers on short miles or household movers guide, and then charging the customer on practical miles. That's just one. But anyway, then I became an owner operator. I leased onto a few different trucking companies, carriers, for several years, and then I got my own authority in 2000. Started pulling reefer for somebody I was turned on to start out with, but I only pulled exempt freight first. Then I got my regular authority. So I've had the issues with brokers myself, and eventually within a few years I got 95% all my own customer freight, and I was only pulling maybe 5% of broker work. Then the '08 crash happened. I got out of it for a little while, and I started up again. Actually, I started with that F350 in 2009, bought that on a credit card, and I bought a hot shot trailer, 40-foot bottom deck and a 10-foot deck over, pretty much a 48-foot step. And I loaded that thing up quite a bit, front to back at times, but after about a year, I said, man, I just got to get back into a big truck. So I've learned the challenges of both the hot shot and the big trucks, and I've pulled van, reefer, flatbed, step, tank, dump, doubles, did LTL for a little while up in New England, and then down here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I've kind of been all around. I did food service as a company driver as well. But I want to touch on this broker transparency because, as any trucker knows, there are crooked brokers out there, or there are brokers that don't care about you as long as they make a profit. And one of the examples that comes to mind is you've had it happen. If you're out there any length of time, you'll call up on a load and you're on your way home. He sees your area code, or he sees where you're out of. He knows you're going home. Oh man, you got to pay for your fuel. No, that's okay. You turn the load down because it doesn't pay enough. And whether you're pulling reefer or van or flatbed, step deck, if you go into a steel mill, I do mostly flattened steps, so you go into a steel mill, you might be there hours in line. No matter what you're doing, I don't care if it's reefer or van, you're still waiting a lot of time. So when you look at a load that barely makes any sense money-wise to take back home or get you close to home, it's like, wait a minute, why should I put in all that effort on that load? I'll go home, heck with it. I'd rather get home quick, sleep in my own bed, wait for another good paying load. And the broker says, oh man, you got to pay for your fuel. No, I don't. No, actually, because you're making a profit and I'm not. I'm not going to spend all that time doing this load. Maybe it's a heavy load too. And why should I use all that fuel and all my brakes, especially coming through mountainous areas? So let's get into the transparency part. It's already part of the FMCSA rules that brokers are required to be transparent. But the issue is, most of the contracts, they say that you have to go to the broker's home office to look over the records. And most carriers know you're not going to waste your time going to the broker's home office to look over the records. So the other end is, are they going to send you that broker transparency of what they charged the customer and what you paid or what you got paid? And I read up on a DAT article that was just on their website about this whole issue of broker transparency. One of the things that he brought up was that these brokers are not going to just send you an email, unsecured email, with their cut on the load, because who knows where it's going to go and who's it going to get out to. And plus, let me put it this way: if a carrier got the margin on this load, he may go and back solicit. Who knows? That's against your contractual relationship with the broker, but who's to say you know you're going to do it or not? Then the other thing is that carrier might know another broker he knows and tell that broker, hey, this is what they were charging, you can charge a little bit less and get that freight. So there's kind of sticky situations in there. So I also became an agent for one of the big companies that I would say is a really good company, and they pay very, very quick with no fees. All around, they're one of the best, probably the best company to broker with as far as the big companies go. And so one thing I read in this guy's article at DAT, and I'm going to contact him on this because I don't know where he got this from, because it really is not truthful with all brokers. Obviously there's some bad ones, but there are good ones too. And he said that brokers are going to look to make as much money on their end and pay the carrier as little as they can. And I thought, man, that is just not true. You know, I'm an agent for this company, and what I do is I look at whatever the load pays. Having been a trucker, I cannot, in all good conscience, try to move a load dirt cheap when I know what kind of work is involved, especially any kind of hard work, whether it's a lot of tying down, specific tying down, oversized, tarping the load. Or I've moved a few reefer and van loads. I try to stay away from them, but you know, I look at a number of things. I'm going to look at how much time and effort is going to be involved in the trucker pulling this load. What are the road conditions, whether holidays, weekends, driving Friday nights, Saturday nights, whatever it might be. The weather conditions. I'm looking at everything this trucker has to deal with and contend with at a shipper or receiver on the load. And then I try to figure up a reasonable rate. But often a customer will say, Marty, I got this load. What can you do it for? So I have to sometimes go into researching and calling carriers that run that lane, or maybe post the load out there, seeing what I could get for a rate. A lot of times, if I can't accurately figure out what the load's gonna pay, because a lot of them I'll know this lane, I know what this load normally costs to move a load, so I can pretty much come up with it, especially partials. I have a lot of partials that are no tarp, agricultural related. And when I say a lot, look, I'm not getting rich on this at all. I live very frugally, and I still truck with my own authority. And but I look at what a load's going to pay, and I try to pay that trucker above the going rate so that I make the guy happy. Now, some of these I'll have to do research, and I'll have to call, email carriers, hey, what can you do this for? And a lot of times I'll tell the customer, I'll give you a rate when I get a truck. And I often get back, it might be a few hours later, I'm doing all kinds of work on it, and I'll say, hey, I got a truck for this rate. And of course I put my money on top of it. And there's other times where, like recently, I had a load that they said we needed to get it there, you know, right away. So I got them a rate on a Conestoga, because this was something that would be hard to tarp. I looked for a Conestoga and I said, all right, I got one truck. Oh no, wait a minute. This one was a van load, I think. And it normally is stuff you tarp, but I was able to get it in a van. So I got one guy that had a team, and then I had a solo. So the team would deliver one day early. So I gave the customer the option. Hey, here's the rate for the team. They'll deliver Thursday. Here's the rate for the solo. He'll deliver Friday. He went with a solo. So I call the team back and I tell them, here's another thing. Sometimes I'll move loads and a guy will really shine. I mean, above everybody else. And that's what you got to sell. If you're a trucker looking to make good money, you better be on top of it. Don't be driving in there with a ratty old banged up tractor and some nasty, dirty flatbed or reefer or van that's nasty looking and expect to get good rates. I'm sorry. Of course, I can't see the trucks, so I have to go by what I hear on the other end and try to decide, is this a good guy or not? But I'm talking about me getting my own freight. My equipment looks good all the time. I take real good care of it. I talked to one of my customers and I said, I'm just curious, does it matter to you what kind of truck comes in here to pick up your freight? He said, oh yeah, it makes a big difference. He said, I want to see a good looking truck come in. And I always got real good rates out of this guy. All he wanted, and this is what I always look for, he wanted service. That's what I sell. And I look for truckers that give good service. So here's the deal. Most of the time, especially with guys I know or guys I see through the system that has comments on the carriers when they pull load for us, I look at the history of the carrier. Does he do a good job typically, or are there complaints on him? All right. I don't look at DAC. I don't look at any of those other things. My company does the background checks on those that are seeking to get set up. So if they got real problems, or double brokering, which is actually a carrier taking a load and then shifting it over to another carrier or giving it to their brokerage, that's what real double brokering is. We don't want those kind of people. And so there have been times where, first of all, I'll call a trucker and I'll say, hey, what do you need? Here's everything about this load. What do you need to make you happy? What do you need for this load? And occasionally I will have the customer say, look, I already got another rate, but I want to see what you can do. So I will typically say, can you tell me what that rate is so I know if I can work on it or not? And I'm not going to get cheap. So recently I had that situation and I called up, and I posted the load. I got two carriers that called. It was a late in the day Friday deal. And I asked the trucker, what's your rate? He said, well, I'm sure you got the rate. Why don't you just tell me what you're going to pay? I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I said, I did not give the customer a rate. And he said, and I told him, I said, the customer did tell me he's got another broker that has a rate, but I don't want to tell you because I do not want you to go cheap. I want you to tell me what your rate is that you're comfortable with, and then I'll put my money on top of that. So he gave me his rate, and I'm telling you, the guy had to be he was going home, but I was like, wow. That was way cheaper than I thought it was going to be. So I called my customer back. I said, look, I got a truck that can pick up, I forget it was that day or the next morning, whatever. And I said, I got it. And I only put my typical small amount on it because that was a quick, easy deal. And they got the load. My customer was tickled. And I was thinking, when the guy gave me that other broker's rate, I was like, man, let's just say it was $2,000. And I thought, I'm going to have to do $2,400-$2,500 to get this one moved. Man, I couldn't believe it. I was able to go to $1,750 because I could have said $1,800. I could have said $1,900, but no, I didn't want to take advantage of my customer. I didn't want to go overboard on my end. and I gave the carrier what they needed. They were tickled. They got the guy home for the weekend. And here's another deal. There's times, I started to touch on this before, when there's carriers that I get to do a load and they shine. I was getting into this before, man. They call me when they're there. They call me when they're loaded. They got pictures they send of their load tarped or whatever it might be. And, you know, hey, I'm unloaded. I mean, they're aggressive in showing me they're doing the job. And man, I surprised so many of these guys that say, hey man, look in your email, you got more money. And I have had every one of these guys, every one of them said, man, no broker has ever done that for me. I said, well, I do. You know, I appreciate good service. You got extra money. And I love doing that, man. If a guy shines, but hey, you know what? There's other guys that really, even though I vet them really well, every once in a while I'll get a douchebag, you know, I mean, just some idiot that just doesn't show up, doesn't call the customer, doesn't let them know he's late. My customer calls looking for the truck. I don't know where he is, trying to call him, doesn't answer the phone, try to call the dispatcher, doesn't answer the phone. And it's like, okay, all right, I will remember this carrier. I will never use them again. So now we get to the point of the guy I was talking with today. He said, you know, well, if we get to a broker and we want to see the transparency and how much he made on the load, if we do that, he's going to blackball me. I said, well, yeah, that's his, you know, I mean, he's got a right to do that. But at the same time, if you got a broker that treats you like crap, and I surely have had them, it's like, oh yeah, they're going in my phone first thing on my caller ID, because I put them in there as a contact, and I'll say lousy broker, lying broker, whatever, piece of crap, and I will never load with them again. Now, I might take their call and lead them on just to get back at them, and I might say, yeah, man, I'm interested in this, you know, and I remember who you are, buddy, and I'll just wait, man. He's calling me back, and it's like, nope, you're gonna suffer now. Get back. So that's another thing. Now, you also have these truckers that show up with nasty equipment. Like I was at my shipper recently, and 2 trucks came in to unload flatbeds. One of them was so nasty looking. That wasn't my load, it was somebody else's load. And he told me how much he got. I asked him how much he got paid for that tarped load, and he told me. I was like, wow. I said, where'd you get that from? He said, Landstar. I said, okay. And I was talking to the guy about, you know, he seemed like a real nice guy. So I said, okay, you know, I'll invest some time in guys that seem like they're teachable. He was a younger guy, a lot younger than me, and he'd only been trucking a few years. And I said, you know, man, I said, you want to get better rates. I mean, you ought to clean up this truck. And, you know, he said, man, he said, my parents own this company. He said, I keep telling them we got to do this. They don't want to spend the money. And he said, man, all the stuff you're telling me, it's like, that's what I've been telling them, you know. And he was really upset. And he said, man, I just don't know what to do. And I said, well, man, you know, you're at a decision point here. You got to make a decision. Are you gonna get the kind of loads you want to get with higher rates? I said, you gotta outshine other trucks, you know. So we had a little good talk, and I'll invest in guys on the phone that are running for me, new guys. I'll coach them, and I'll tell them certain things. Now, here's another thing. Whenever I pick up a load, I always take pictures of everything, the whole thing. On the other end, I do the same thing. If it's tarped, I take a picture of everything before it's tarped. Take a picture of, and if it's VIN numbers, serial numbers, I'll try to remember to take pictures of those. And then on the other end, especially expensive machinery, multiple stops, and that has saved my butt more than once. I've had a broker call me and, well, sent me an email and said, hey, this second stop said you shorted them 2 pallets, fencing material, I think it was. And I said, I took pictures at every stop, and every pallet was marked in big letters spray painted on the pallets what stop number they were. I said, you tell them I got pictures at every stop. That was it. Never contacted me again. I had another one where they claimed it was damaged freight, and I sent pictures of everything. Thank God. Another one, got out of that one. So that's just a little free hint right there. Now getting back to broker transparency, here's some other things that happen that I think everybody's got to know. Anytime you do a load, you want to get paid for the work you do, right? So let's say a customer of yours or a broker calls and they have you go to pick up this load. You get there, it's not ready. Oh man, it's going to be ready tomorrow. Well, like, I got to get paid for this, you know? And let's say you do 2 or 3 times, you go to pick up a load and it's not ready. You want extra money for that, right? So there are customers that call and want you to do a load for them, or 2 or 3 loads. I've had, I used to have a customer, and they were very often calling me late in the day, after hours, or in the middle of the night, or even on weekends and holidays. And I can remember one that was the epitome of getting me pissed off. But there were others that, you know, hey, you do all this work, and then they say, oh, never mind, after you've already called all these truckers to do this load that they really needed that was hot, or the shipment, you know. And one time I had gone on vacation. We were all getting ready to go to the beach with a whole family, and this customer calls on the holiday weekend. Man, we got this big emergency. I was like, oh man. Well, I knew I could get them hard on the high rate, and I'd pay the truckers top rate for this. I had to get 3 flatbeds on the holiday weekend. I lined up all these trucks, took about 2.5 hours, and I called them back, got the trucks, here's the rate. Yeah, man, well, we decided we're not going to do it. And I said, what? He said, yeah, well, you know, the salesman wanted to know what we could do this for. I said, are you kidding me, man? I said, do you realize what I just went through for you guys? So what does that mean? My family, I went out to the beach. My family and all the relatives were coming back. I missed the best part of that vacation. Now, I got to put some stuff on the next few loads. It's not going to be my regular amount. So there are times when I'm going to put extra on a load. There's also certain things that I do for my customers. I'll go and visit them. They'll say, hey, Marty, can you come down and look at this machinery that we're going to ship? They can send me pictures, but to make them feel confident, I go down there and I show them, because I am service oriented. I go down, I look at the load, I take measurements, I make sure I'm getting all the information I need, because the last thing I want is a trucker to know he's getting such and such. Oh, there's extra stuff that goes with it. No, I don't want to have surprises. That's one of the things that I really try to avoid. So I work very hard to make sure that these loads that are like this one that I'm talking about, this one particular customer, and they often require a lot of work to tie down and to tarp, especially the oversized loads. Really very unfriendly tarping, let me tell you. And occasionally it'll be so bad you just got to get a Conestoga if it's legal. So also, I will often go, when the truck is there loading up, I'll go there and I'll be there watching everything. And if the driver needs help, man, I'm helping them throw straps or put padding on the load, tarp it, I'm helping them. And my customer really appreciates this, and that's why they stick with me, even though they've been bought out. It used to be two local guys that owned that company, and they got bought out by an overseas company that is not easy to deal with at all, and it's nowhere near the amount of freight the other 2 guys pushed out, the big stuff. So I got a lot less of that now. But I got another customer that I picked up, and I'm the same way. I go over there and I look at stuff. I'm there when loads come in or trucks come in to load, and you know, I do little extra things that other brokers don't. I'll go meet the driver and talk with them and show them. A lot of times I'll show them how to tie stuff down the right way, because it's not always the easiest stuff to tie down, and they all appreciate that. But I mean, I'm glad to do it because I'm a driver myself. So those are just a few of the things about broker transparency. Oh, there's one other one I want to share. So if you're happy with the load payment that you got, if you're happy with the rate, that's all you should care about. I remember one guy I was loading with out of, I can't think of the name of North Carolina, up 77. But in any case, I was getting paid real good money whenever he had a load. Pick up there, deliver to maybe Georgia or something. And it was small stuff, but it needed a tarp. It wasn't hard to tie down. It was just, heavy, small tarp. And I remember one day I was out there with my flatbed, and all the bigwigs were out there talking right next to me near my flatbed as I was standing up on a trailer throwing my straps and chains and whatever. And they're talking about, man, we're just paying too much on these loads, man, and then they come out with how much they're paying. And it's like they're obviously wanting me to hear it. So I'm hearing it and I'm thinking, they want me to say, what? You're getting charged how much? I could do it for less than that. Well, I let that go, didn't say anything. And after I delivered that load down in Georgia, I got back next day. I said, hey man, I told the broker all about that story. And he said, well, let me tell you something. Just like what happens with me with that other customer I had. He said, this company calls me up all hours of the night and on weekends, and they're wanting trucks, they're wanting this, they're wanting that. And then they say, oh, never mind, we're not going to do it. And I'm thinking, oh, I know that story. He said, plus the stuff you're hauling, it's worth $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million, depending on what you're hauling on cargo value. He said, you don't have that. And at that time, I only had 100,000. I carry a $500,000 now on cargo. And he said, but we carry that extra insurance. And that's why you're getting the good rate you're getting, because we're doing all this on our end. And I was like, hey man, I'm fine. I mean, I'm not complaining about the rate that I got. I was getting paid easily enough to come back empty out of Georgia. And it was, for me, it was pretty darn easy work. Tarping was not that big of a deal. So I was happy to do it, man. It was always, ready to go now. You ready to go now? It's ready now. Yeah, here's, we come up with a rate, get it done, happy, we're done. So that's kind of it. If you have any comments, just put them down below. I'll try to address them later. If you liked what I said, or if you like the information, think it's helpful, just give me a thumbs up. And I'll be doing more videos. By the way, there's another broker that I know, and I've known him a long time. He is the epitome of the best broker that I know. And he and I are the same. We treat, we look at it this way. The shipper, the receiver, and the carrier are our customers. We treat them all the same with respect. The truckers are my customers as well. If I can't get good carriers, they're, you can do all the good kissing up to the customer you want, which I don't kiss up to them, but you can do all the right things you want with a customer, but if you don't have a good reputation with carriers, man, forget it. And I am thankful that I got a good reputation. I remember one of these guys that I used to load, him and his son and his other owner operator, I loaded them a lot. And I used to have, when business was really good, which it will be again, I used to have a lot of good paying freight and all kinds, step deck, double drop, wide loads, extendable loads. And I remember calling up this guy and he said, man, I love seeing your phone number come up on my phone. He said, that's Marty. I got to answer this one. He's always got good paying freight. And that's the kind of reputation that I've developed. And so the thing is here, transparency to me as a broker and a trucker who does not want to get screwed is not the biggest thing. Biggest thing is, am I happy with my load, my rate? And if I don't think I'm getting paid very well, I'm going to try to get a higher rate if I can't. And if, especially if that broker sounds disrespectful or, like, I don't need to deal with you. I'm saying if that's the broker's attitude, and you can detect some of these brokers that have, they look down on the carrier like, you're just another carrier, we don't care. And there's certain brokers I will never, ever load with again. One of the big ones is not very quality. They might think they are total, but their logistics company, I will never load for them again. And I could tell that story another time. Actually, there's 2 stories, but it's like when I post my truck, I put 3 asterisks, I put capital letters, no TQL, 3 exclamation points, and 3 asterisks. And I get a lot of times brokers will call me and they're laughing. They said, yeah, we know about them. Yeah, they can really shaft you. And there's some guys, like I loaded for them a number of times earlier, but the last 2, they screwed me out of detention time on both of them. There's one guy actually had the nerve to say, oh man, you're getting paid too much on this load. I can't pay you anymore. I said, are you kidding me, pal? I said, this is my weekend. I said, this is not my fault that this is happening. So I did get a little bit out of each one, but they didn't want to pay the real detention on it. So I said, okay, that's it, man. Once I get my money, I will never, ever answer their phone again. So that's it. I hope that helps. And there might be more information that comes to mind, but for now, those are the top points I wanted to make. Like I said, put any comments below. I think the other main things we got to really fight is the ELD mandate. Get rid of those stupid ELDs. You don't need them. I don't even think you need hours of service, really. Look, they got trucks running months on end, running FEMA loads without any logbook. The government says, hey, you don't have to run your logbook if you're running FEMA loads. Oh, really? So there's people dying all over the highway? No, they're not, because truckers aren't stupid, most of them. And so there you go. You don't even need the hours of service to be safe. Best way to be safe is drive when you're alert, sleep when you're tired. That's the way to do it. You do it that way and then make it look good on paper if we have to keep the doggone logbooks, but that's the way it is, man. And I'm telling you, man, with Trump in now, we are going to see a lot of money come our way. A lot of business is going to be popping up like crazy, getting rid of all these stupid regulations, getting rid of the EPA regulations on our engines, getting rid of the IRS. I think, if I can think of it, I'm sure he did. I believe he's going to probably get rid of the federal excise tax. Man, you talk about that being gone and the IRS being gone, man, you're going to see stuff sell like hotcakes. I'm talking equipment, new machinery, trucks, trailers, automobiles, everything. If they get rid of the FET, watch that take off. So anyway, that's it for this one.